Hello and welcome to Lansing Pulse. I'm Ken Miller, joined as always by City Administrator Tim Vandall. Earlier in January, Tim, the City Council voted to move forward with the next steps in planning the municipal pool project, a topic that we've just been discussing before we came on camera. So what will happen this year, 2023, to make the city pool a reality? And I believe we're looking at an opening date of 2025.
Yeah, so this 2023, a lot of it's going to be just engineering and design. I think a lot of times maybe people don't realize the work that goes in behind it. It's not quite as simple as putting up a residential pool or something like that. We had mostly positive feedback from folks when we did our open house and when we had the previous iteration of our website. So that helps with the design, that we had mostly positive feedback in there. The other thing, though, that our engineers were telling us that maybe a lay person like me doesn't think about, water is incredibly heavy. So they were talking about how the structure of the pool and also the land and the soil needs to be strong enough to hold up this pool that's filled with something that's incredibly heavy. So that's one of the things that takes time for them to work on.
So they have to do they have to compact the land, the dirt that it's going to be sitting on? Or?
Yeah, and I know because the land is it's not in floodplain, but it's close to floodplain, so the soils are loose. So they're looking at doing some type of something to the soil to make it more stable for the pool. So there's a lot of things kind of in the background that maybe people won't see once they go and swim, but they are working on that right now. Even beyond that, though, there's plans with the building, how the building will look, and the features that building will have. I can tell you internally we're talking about concession stands, or if we just do vending machines and those types of things, how mechanical looks, the types of pumps, and one of the things we spoke about at that city council meeting is if we move the splash pad next to the pool, and if that's the case, there's going to be maybe a little bit more pumps or more chemical that goes through the system and things like that.
And more people.
And more people, exactly. Another thing that they're going to be looking at too is the parking lot and the traffic layout. How many parking spots do we have? How does the traffic come in? How does the traffic go out? At one point, one of the earlier conceptual designs, I want to say like it went in off of Bittersweet and then out kind of where there's a curb cut there right now. Off of
Mary, right?
Yep.
What are you talking about?
So we're looking at all of these different designs on traffic flow and things like that. So again, all of these things that when your kiddos go to the pool in 2025, you might not think about, but it's these types of things that the engineers are working on right now to make sure it's easy to get in there, easy to park, that the flow into the building is good, that the slides, all of these things, we want it to be a wonderful experience for people. So they're working on that right now.
Sure. Okay, so you mentioned design, and that's kind of where we're at now. Can residents who are interested still make their preferences, their opinions known for what they want to see out at the new facility?
Absolutely. I think we're going to be updating that website so folks can still submit feedback if they want to. Even beyond that, I know our Parks and Recreation Director, Jason Crum, and I, we've been talking a little bit about doing maybe another forum or two just to solicit feedback and hear from folks. Even beyond that, I'd remind people our city council meetings are always open to the public. But even beyond that, we're a small town. If you call our city hall, the odds are I'm probably there. If you call our Parks and Rec office, the odds are Jason's probably there. And so we love to hear feedback from people. We love to think about ideas and brainstorm. Just the other day, a friend of mine was telling me about a pool that she knows of that has like a Teflon dome that allows it to be open in colder months. I had passed that on to our engineering team to see if that's something they have experience with, but at the very least, we're brainstorming right now, we're kicking around ideas, we're trying to figure out what we can do to make this the best facility possible. I know when we were at that council meeting last week, I believe it was Councilman Brungart was very adamant, and he said, we want to do this right. We don't want to do this $9 million project and then have buyer's remorse right after it opens. We want to take our time, we want to do it right, and I think we will do it right.
Okay. All right. As announced late last year, there's been some movement with Town Center, and Kansas City, Kansas Community College has announced plans to build a satellite campus there. A few things have to happen first as far as financing before anything happens, I think. What's the latest there?
So you're right, they're just working on a funding and financing plan for that. It's worthwhile for people to remember. I think that's slated to open in 2027.
Right.
So it's challenging, similar to the pool. Folks get excited, and I'm excited about KCKCC coming to Town Center as well. But projects of that scale sometimes just take time.
Sure.
For Lansing residents who have been here for 10 years or more, think about, the bond issues, when the school bond issues passed, that $70 million high school wasn't built at the drop of a hat. It takes time. KCKCC is going to take time, but I'm incredibly excited about their new construction. They've shown us some really rough conceptual plans, and I think they're working right now on more refined plans. And the thing that gets me excited about that too is all of the students that'll be coming to Lansing, whether they're high school students getting some AP courses or anything like that, or maybe they are freshmen or sophomores coming to Lansing working on a certain program. Those are going to be people coming to town, pumping gas, going to our restaurants, being in town, and so we're incredibly excited about that. It's going to be such a positive thing for Lansing. And even beyond that too, you think about how long Town Center had sat vacant. And KCKCC won't be the entire Town Center property, but so much of that property had been vacant for so long, and we were just so thrilled about this partnership, about working together with them to build a better facility in Lansing. And I'm really excited about it. Like I said, 2027 can't come soon enough.
All right, so the intersection project at K-7 and Eisenhower Rd, the completion date has been pushed back. And I think that's because we had a lot of delays with utility relocation. This is underground. So there's not really a lot of work to be done. If I'm hearing our Public Works Director correctly, you're talking about a mill and overlay that will probably take maybe 2 to 3 days max to complete when the weather is appropriate for asphalt, putting asphalt down. So in your estimation, and again, weather and actually material supply could wreak havoc with this, but what's the new time frame for completion so that when we can finally say it's going to be fully open, this is the way it's going to be, people can stop having a kitten about it?
Yeah, I think it'll be early in the spring, hopefully. I don't have an exact date, obviously, but you're right. They can only pour asphalt and lay asphalt when the temperature is a certain level.
Right.
So I mean, we are kind of restrained by the weather right now. That said, I know just the other day they took all of the forms off where the retaining wall is.
Sidewalk, yep.
The sidewalk and the retaining wall by Quick Trip.
Yep.
And that looks terrific. And so there's a little bit of dirt work they have to do over there. The other thing that I think they can work on now is the lane lines, the temporary lane lines. But it's 90-something% done. It's pretty dang close to being done. And we understand there were a lot of delays in it. Hopefully there's not as many delays now, but we understand there were delays in this process. But now that it's 95% complete, you can kind of see how it will improve the traffic flow. And I think people are excited about it. And the businesses in that neck of the woods, they were so helpful to work with. Quick Trip was great, Club Car Wash was great, Tractor Supply was great. So these businesses were so good to work with for us because I think they saw the value in improving that intersection from a traffic flow standpoint and from a safety standpoint. The other thing that I really loved about this project, it was just a great example of cooperation between Lansing and Leavenworth and the State Department of Transportation because we were able to receive a $1.6 million grant for this. But another example of cooperation that I think you're familiar with too, when there were traffic delays or lanes that were scaled back or even closed for that 1 week, I know even our friends at Fort Leavenworth were putting out announcements to their people saying, hey, use detours. And so, I mean, it truly was a project that so many people were involved in, businesses, local contractors, the state, us,
Right.
Fort Leavenworth.
Right.
Just really a team effort, and it's great to see that, maybe in April this thing will be completed, and we're thrilled about that.
Right, and you could tell, as somebody that drives DeSoto Road and Shrine Park Road fairly often, you could tell there was additional traffic on that, which is what we kind of directed people to do to avoid the intersection mess at
Exactly.
K-7 and Eisenhower. Okay, had a chance earlier this week to put a photograph up on our social media, and it was an aerial shot provided by Sands Construction, so thank you very much to them. But it was an aerial shot of the ball fields, the new ball fields out at Bernard Park. Elicited a lot of positive comment. I think people are very excited about that. But what's the update in terms of when we're going to see little sluggers out there playing?
Yeah, right now it's mostly just cleanup things. I think earlier this week or late last week they were installing fixtures in the bathrooms. I think they'd been working on painting, but I think some of that colder weather, I'm not sure if that slowed them down a little bit. I think they were working on a few things at the concession stand, and then maybe finalizing a few things with the batting cages.
Right.
But for the most part, I mean, you can tell by that photo you posted, they're incredibly close to being done. And boy, it's such a beautiful facility, and I think our residents are really going to love it. The one thing that we're trying to remind people about, though, to give that turf extra time to get established. We may do practices at City Park still. We may be if you're taking your little slugger out there to practice, please do that to City Park, and we're going to have our teams practicing out at City Park most likely as well, just because we want that grass to get an extra month to get established, to get strong before games begin that first week of June.
And weather is going to play a lot of that too. If it gets warmer and we get some rain, the turf will probably advance a lot quicker. So keep your fingers crossed. All right, lastly, we're going to be we're in a new Kansas legislative session, just started this week. And there's a new face representing Lansing. I've had a chance to meet with now Representative Bueller. There's some old friends as well. So what are you watching on a state level? And, for us as a city, and I think the county would agree with this, a lot of times the issues that we watch are fairly similar year in and year out. Whatever that means, you decide. But what are you watching in particular on the state level this session that may impact Lansing?
One of the hot topics right now is local ad valorem tax reimbursement.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, and so that's a funding stream that the state allocated to municipalities to help reduce property taxes. It's still on the books, but I believe the state rescinded that. Maybe even back in Governor Graves' time.
I think it was 2001. It was after 9/11.
So I mean, it's been quite a while since that was dialed back. And why I think that's such a hot topic for cities right now is valuations were just exploding. And if there's that funding stream that comes back to cities, it gives us a chance to lower property taxes a little bit, lower the rate, I should say, because if valuations go up, lowering that rate can offset that a little bit. And again, even though that is on the books, the state hasn't allocated that to municipalities for pretty close to 20 years probably. And that's one of those things too, in that 20-year span you've had governors from both parties.
Right.
So it's not, there's no blame or anything like that on one specific end of the spectrum.
And maybe the wild card this time around is the state is sporting a multi-billion-dollar surplus, which is pretty much unheard of. Is this the time to go after that money now?
It might be, but also I know there's discussion about reducing the food sales tax even faster than they had envisioned. So I mean that's something that we'll keep an eye on, because again, re-implementing LAVTR would help out Lansing and every city across the state to tick away at that property tax rate, because again we haven't had that funding from the state in almost 20 years. Another thing that's always a big deal for Lansing, and when Representative Bueller came by and spoke to me, I had mentioned this to him, transportation is always such a big deal in Lansing. And it's challenging for us. We're in the metro, which is fantastic for us, but sometimes our access to the rest of the metro creates a challenge. All of those stoplights on K-7 makes it harder to get somewhere faster. Or you look at K-5, how windy that is, and how, at times and in certain places, how unsafe that is. And I'm just not sure K-5 in its current condition and current layout, I'm not sure that's sustainable long term. So I'm certainly hopeful that the state will look at that more, and anything that we can do to improve Lansing's access to the rest of the metro, that's going to help our community grow. It's going to help our businesses. So those are two things really Lansing specific that we'll be keeping an eye on. Beyond that though, and this is statewide, maybe doesn't impact Lansing quite as much right now, but I am fascinated by those water issues in western Kansas. And it's challenging because, I mean, that is, the more folks are able to utilize that water, I mean, there's certainly a financial benefit to that with farming and the cattle industry. But at the flip side, those aquifers are not being replenished at the rate at which the water is being used. So, I'm sure the state will need to come up with some type of compromise or something. And it's challenging too, because you look at nationwide, especially that western half of the nation, this certainly isn't a Kansas only issue. I mean, you look at Arizona, Colorado, all of these states out west, they're experiencing water shortages as well.
It's critical out there. Yeah,
it is. And they're in a worse spot than we are. But hopefully, if the legislature and private parties out west can come to some type of an agreement, hopefully we're not in the place now that Arizona, California, and those states are in. So I'll be fascinated to see how that shakes out. Like I said, that doesn't impact Lansing quite as much, but from a statewide standpoint, I think that will be very interesting to see.
All right, I've been speaking with Lansing City Administrator Tim Vandall. For Lansing Pulse, I'm Ken Miller.